Good day, listeners, and welcome to Not Just Business. This is our second episode since the coronavirus exploded worldwide, and most of us are in lockdown. But that presented us with an opportunity to learn to do online podcast interviews with acceptable sound quality, and that, of course, opens up a whole lot of possibilities. For instance, today, some of you know I'm based in Cape Town, South Africa, but today is my first cross-border interview, and it's a real pleasure to welcome an ex-Cape Townian, now resident in Santiago de Chile, Michelle Clarke. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Derek. I'm excited to be here this morning.
Thank you for being on our show. Michelle is a global leadership coach. Her work focuses on helping leaders all over the world thrive, and by so doing, making a greater impact on the world around them. She's also a coach, trainer, an improvised acting teacher, a wannabe photographer, although I don't think you do yourself justice. You're actually a flippin' good photographer. I've seen some of your stuff. You're also a slackliner, a yogi, and a world traveler. So that's quite an impressive resume. Tell me how did you get to where you are now? Tell me the story.
It's interesting that you say it's an impressive resume. The one thing that you'll note that you're not including in the resume is that I'm not a wife or a mum. And so it's when one doesn't have a family, it's easy to fill it up with all kinds of other pastimes and hobbies and interests, which is what I've done. I'm delighted to not be a mum. That may interest some of the female viewers, but that was a choice. And as a consequence, I've been able to fill my life with all kinds of other things that sound like an impressive resume.
Okay. So how did you get to, you're now based in Santiago. How did that all come about? First of all, what drew you to coaching?
So I discovered coaching many years ago, probably 20 years ago now, when I was doing some traveling in the UK, and life coaching sort of hit the tabloids in the UK as this sexy thing. Everybody wanted a lifestyle coach. And I thought, what an excellent idea for a career. I can use my intellect. I don't have to deal with products, and I get to help people to have some great results. So when I returned from that trip to the UK, I sought out coaching schools in South Africa. It was a really new thing at the time, and I managed to jump into the second coaching school's second class intake. Mm-hmm. So I've been coaching for a long time. I continued to study. I'm quite dedicated. I make sure I study something new every year so that I'm on the top of the profession. And I love it. I love my work. What drew me to Santiago was a personal sabbatical. My father passed away in 2013, at the end of 2013. He was a gypsy by heart. He was a world traveler, and I think I inherited his genes. And he said, go traveling. And I'd traveled. I've always traveled, but I'd never lived somewhere for an extended period of time. So I chose South America for ease because at that time, South Africans did not need a travel visa to come to this continent. And I had never been here. And I chose Santiago because at that time, it was one of the most progressive cities on the continent. In my final third month of being here in Santiago, just sort of 2 weeks before I was planning to leave, I went to a braai at the South African embassy and started a conversation with a South African businessman who had a project going on in the north here of Chile, where he had bought 10 miners to do a project, and they had merged with 10 Chilean engineers, and the project was pretty much on a go nowhere because of challenges in the communication between the cultures. And since I have training and experience in cross-cultural communication, I shared that I might be able to help. And consequently, I have remained in Chile for 6 years.
6 years already. Oh. So you're probably the first totally online coach in the world. How did that come about? Was that sort of by necessity?
I'm not sure if that's accurate, but I'll take it. I love it. I was stimulated into the decision to go virtual when I was doing some training in London. Not at the same time I discovered coaching. Some years later, I went and did some additional training in London. And the trainer shared during that training that some years previously she was diagnosed with cancer. And because of that, she decided to bring all her work online. And I was just very inspired by that idea of bringing all my work online. Mm-hmm. I love to travel, and I wanted to create a lifestyle where I could combine my travel and my work.
Okay.
And it made perfect sense for me to work online. And I guess my arrival in Latin America just solidified that idea, because I realized there are thousands of coaches, really competent, well-trained coaches on this continent who work in Spanish. Mm-hmm. I had to make a decision. I could choose to become proficient in Spanish and join the ranks of thousands of other qualified coaches. What I decided to do instead was to niche myself in as an English coach. And that has been a great boon in my success. I was picking up a lot of expatriate clients here in Chile, and then word spread, and I am now coaching up the continent, all in English, continue with clients in South Africa. So I started to realize that borders and boundaries meant nothing. I work in English. If somebody is able to hop onto a virtual platform as we are today, then that's my preferred way of working.
Okay. And it saves a lot of traveling time and stuff, I suppose.
Totally. It's what I call green. I'm not contributing to emissions. I'm not, moving through a city. And I'm similarly saving my clients from doing the same thing.
Okay. You have quite an impressive list of client companies I see that you worked with and still work with. How do your clients adapt to your online style?
Very well. Very well. Even in the city of Santiago, when I coach people, I do not volunteer to meet them in person. This is how I coach. I invite people to pop onto a Zoom call and to meet me. I have, over the years, been very conscious about adapting a style that feels natural, that I can bring my energy to my work. And I've had nobody who says that they feel any lack working with me online. In fact, people are very praiseworthy about how much they enjoy working online with me. And they get the added bonus of building their tech muscles and feeling comfortable working online. So many people now are working, a lot of my clients work with global teams. They're managing people across borders. And so becoming comfortable within the technology is good for them as well.
Mm-hmm. I must say I've been on Zoom for about a year, but in the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've used it more than the previous 11 months. And got to learn to work with stuff like Microsoft Teams and Cisco WebEx, and of course everybody's at Skype for yonks. I predict, by the way, that when this all comes to an end, the traffic will have halved and nobody's going to be rushing off to the office anymore.
You better believe it. Mm-hmm. I'm coaching a guy at the moment who's based in Rio. He is saying to me, I don't want to go back to work. I'm managing this very nicely at home. I'm getting to spend time with my wife and kids. I don't want to go back to an office ever again.
Yeah.
And I think there are going to be many people who realize that actually to be in charge of one's own time is a lot more efficient.
Mm-hmm. So how do you build rapport online? Is it more difficult or is it easier than face-to-face?
I would say that my ability to build rapport is probably better now in the virtual space, but I actually feel more comfortable in the virtual space than when I have to meet somebody face-to-face. I've created a lot of hand gestures, ways of greeting clients. I encourage them to do the same thing. I'm very observant. I think that's a lovely quality for an online coach or leader to have, is very much I'll observe if you've changed your specs, I'll observe if you've cleaned your bookshelf, and all of these little things go toward creating rapport. I have a lot of women clients who will get up and show me the dress that they're wearing. There are numerous ways to connect and build rapport.
Yeah. Got to be careful when you get up now online. You have to sort of remember if you still got your pajama shorts on.
Of course.
You were obviously born under a wandering star, like your father. What are the pros and cons of working from Santiago as opposed to Cape Town? I mean, how is life different there?
The biggest pro, which I realized upon arriving here, is how excellent the Wi-Fi is on this continent, how generous the various governments are about sharing Wi-Fi in parks and cafes, and it's a very solid stream.
Mm-hmm.
In January, I was down in the south of the continent. I mean, this is like the furthest south I've ever been in my life, right down to the freezing part of the country. And they had 4G running at such a fabulous rate that I was just so impressed. It's a challenge to work in a country when I've not mastered the language. One would imagine after 6 years here that I have mastered the language, but because I work so much in English, I have not. So that's both a challenge and an opportunity, because especially now with the COVID, stores are closing their entrance doors and we have to shout to the store owner what we need. And my Spanish is vastly improving as I have to remember what a lettuce is called, and please can I have potatoes, and I have to say it in Spanish, so there's the silver lining. For me, there is a particular niche that I've discovered in marketing myself as the English-speaking coach. There are first language Spanish speakers who belong to global organizations and who are managing English-speaking areas and teams. And so they want the additional challenge of working in English. And that's just been great. So I'm coaching clients in Panama, in Ecuador, in Peru, in Brazil, and I didn't anticipate that would be the case.
Good. Okay. So what is your coaching style or your philosophy?
A very purist coach. By purist, I mean that I'm here to serve my clients' thinking. I do not offer advice, tell anybody what to do. I do not try and package up my expertise. I'm very much sticking very cleanly to a Socratic method of asking questions, trying to uncover my client's thinking. It's what I teach as well. I'm also a coach trainer with Get Smarter in the University of Cape Town. And a lot of the material that we created, I had a large hand in drafting, and it's really about purism coaching. Ask the questions, serve your clients' thinking.
Okay. I see on your website you mentioned personal branding is one of your focus areas. First of all, can you describe personal branding for us lay people?
In fact, thank you very much. I do need to sort of make some amends on that website, because once personal branding was a focus area for me, but now I would say I'm a personal branding practitioner. That means that I daily am practicing personal branding. And my definition of personal branding is it is presenting your personality in a way that attracts your ideal client. So it's got to be authentic, because when people arrive to meet you, your branding message and the personality you put forward has to be the same person that they meet. And it really is about being committed to everyday, I'll use the word exposing, but I mean it in the most constructive way, to exposing your personality and exposing your thought processes to a market so that they can make an informed decision about working with you.
Okay, that's interesting. Why do you think that is important?
It's our current modern marketing method. People buy people, especially as coaches. People are going to invest in spending their time with me, so they ought to have a window into my world, my thoughts. It is my methodology of marketing. It surprises me daily where my clients come from, and most of them come through the fact that I am regularly sharing my thoughts, regularly putting my personality in place, and people are either seeing that or they are telling other people about this really interesting person that maybe you should meet.
You certainly have an impressive online profile.
There you go.
So that's how I found it, I suppose.
Good. Thank you.
So is there an ideal personal brand that people should strive for, or is it something that comes individually?
No, I don't think there's a blueprint. I think there is a blueprint per person. So just going back to being completely authentic, there is a little bit, I guess, of curating. I'm careful about what I put out.
Sure.
Not pretending, but careful. There's some stuff that's not for public consumption. My dating life, who my mum is, none of these things are available for public consumption. So I am making sure that what I share, because it's a marketing strategy, that it is serving what I want it to do, which is to attract clients.
quite important to curate yourself from time to time. I just think in my own case, I think it comes from my father and all my brothers. We have a very wacky sense of humor. We laugh all the time. And I meet with my brothers now.
Lovely.
Every Sunday night we have and they're on 3 continents now, so we have there are 5 of us. We have a Zoom meeting every Sunday night just to catch up because we're all getting on a bit, as you see. So then, it's laughter all the time. Even amongst the direst of circumstances, we laugh at.
Wonderful.
But I've got to be aware, I'm also, often sitting in a board meeting, I can make people laugh, and then there's a time for that, and I would say something funny, and everybody would laugh. But there's also a time to say, now's not the time to say something funny. Now's the time to curb, as you say, curate your, in my case, the sense of humor.
Sense of humor is a beautiful gift.
Yeah. On a similar note to personal branding, talk to me about presence. How important is presence? And how does one cultivate presence?
Yeah, critical, right? Everything happens in the present. But our ability to really create transformation in people stems from how present we are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm presently listening to a bunch of coach call recordings. Our students have to submit coach call recordings.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I have the added advantage of the fact that I was not the coach. So I'm able to listen really carefully to determine how present that coach was in their listening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a skill, it's a muscle we have to develop.
Mm-hmm.
But when the coach is fully present, when they're able to hear what's being said and what's not being said, it changes their craft completely. Their questions are informed and asked comes from how present they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a challenge to be present in the current time we're living in because there's so much to distract us.
Absolutely.
So, learning to cultivate that, especially in the times when we're with people, when they're talking to us,
mm-hmm.
when they need our attention, critical.
Before we were confined to our homes, I think a lot of people were going to work but worrying and for all kinds of things, financial problems. They were present at the office, marked present, signed in, but not really there.
Totally.
One of my favorite expressions, I think it's a Buddhist expression, it says, be where you are or you will miss your life.
I love that.
That's simple, eh?
Yeah.
But it really says. So, then tell us about improv, what do you call it? Improvisation. What's the full word? What is it? I've been watching you on Facebook. First of all, how did it attract your attention? How did you study it? What did you learn about yourself?
I came to improv. The full word is improvisation. It's improvisational theatre.
Mm-hmm.
And I came to improv because of coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first graduated as a coach all those many years ago in South Africa, the one thing I experienced is that we coaches were taking ourselves so seriously. We were talking about ethics and like the coaching piece, and we were super serious people. And I wanted to be a bit light about it because I was like astounded that we could even make a profession of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I contacted a friend of mine who does stand-up comedy work.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that that's the route I wanted to take. I thought I wanted to be a stand-up comic. And he reached out to me a few months later and said, he's heard via the grapevine that an improv teacher is in town and he's going to sign up for the improv course, and did I want to as well? And I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I signed up for improv. And what I really love about it, we were talking about presence just now. In improv, we have no idea what is coming. We co-create a story or we co-create a piece of theatre together without a script, without a set, without a storyline. So we have no idea what's going to come next. Done in a group. And so although I may add a little piece of information, I have no idea what anyone else is going to do with my information. And so I need to be really present. I need to be listening. I need to be very accepting of what's shared with me and build on it so that I can push the story forward. The one thing it has really done for me is to help my presence.
Mm-hmm.
In improv, we say, be here now. There's nothing else to do. Just be here and listen.
Mm-hmm.
It's really also helped to develop my sense of humor muscle, because it's funny because we don't know where we're going. It's funny where we do go. And then I started to teach improv. I did improv and performed for many years in Cape Town. And when I came to Santiago, they only had Spanish-speaking groups. I didn't have the courage to join one of those. But about 4 years ago, I was approached by a local English-speaking comedian who asked me if I could teach improv. And he pulled a group of people together, and I took up the challenge to teach them.
Mm-hmm.
I put 4 improv groups on the stage and had them perform. I confess that I love teaching more than I actually love doing.
Okay.
I think I'm a much better improv teacher than I am an actual improviser.
Mm-hmm.
It just helps people to develop a lot of self-trust. We have to trust ourselves and our group a lot because we don't know where we're going, and we trust we're going somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I have not taken my improv online. That's what all other improv teachers are busy doing at this time, and I'm not there yet. Maybe I will. We'll see.
Yeah, it's probably a good time to do it now. My wife tells me she's now found an online Pilates group. So she's got the studio all set up and the computer is ready. So it's on Zoom. So it's not just like a YouTube lesson. They watch what you do and they tell you what you're doing wrong.
Oh, amazing. How nice. Yeah. Personal instruction. I love that.
Yeah.
One of the coolest things about this time is that, for example, if we look at Pilates or improv or other things we can do online, the restrictions have been lifted.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to go to improv classes, I don't have to choose a class in Santiago. I can choose a class in New York or
exactly.
Istanbul or wherever I fancy. I now have exposure to international teachers, which is awesome.
Yeah. And talking about improv, I think it was one of the Shakespeare plays, As You Like It. I think where all the world's a stage. That was a technique I developed for myself. I was the CEO of a life insurance company. And I used to be very afraid of public speaking until I decided that the best way to do it was try to act it as if it wasn't really me. So I became quite good at it to the point where I actually eventually enjoyed walking onto the stage where previously I was, my knees were shaking, and just pretend, look at Al Pacino, see what he does and try and emulate that kind of thing. And it works. So,
brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. It's the sort of fake it till you make it
yes,
philosophy.
Absolutely, yeah. Slacklining, that was an interesting one. I've seen you on your videos balancing on this piece of wire or something. It seems to be something that you also use in your work, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just a hobby.
So how slacklining came about is through something that I call social sway, which means that I was swayed into doing it. I swayed myself into doing it. So I was at a yoga festival. There were a group of teenagers walking up and down on a slackline. They have different names for it. A ribbon, an elastic. In dimensions, it's about half the diameter of a foot.
Mm-hmm.
So your foot kind of falls over the side of it.
Okay.
And it's tensioned between 2 trees, and it moves. It's not a static thing. It moves as you walk. But I took a video of these teenagers doing it, and I posted it on Facebook, and I said, hey, I want to learn to do this. And I don't think I did want to learn to do this. I think I just was trying to be cute. And my Facebook audience almost challenged me. They said, okay, do it, go on, do it. And before I knew it, I had somebody come into my private inbox saying I can teach in English because I wanted an English teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And, I felt the social sway. So I had created a situation where now my audience wanted me to do this. And so I took it up.
Mm-hmm.
It landed up being an incredibly immense learning for me. The way my teacher chose to teach this, and I guess there is no professional slacklining teaching school here in Santiago, but my teacher is a sponsored pro, and his approach is very spiritual. It's very much breath work, mind work, inner work, coming to a place of calm, even though you feel scared as hell when you're moving on this moving thing above the ground. We didn't have safety nets or anything. So learning to really go inside, walking meditation, proper breath work, finding the ability in your brain to be able to establish how to move your body parts without looking at it.
Okay.
So you can't look down and say, oh, I need to move my hip to the left. Your brain has to recognize that you need to move your hip to the left. A great skill because off the slack line, you are so much more balanced. If you are walking down the street and you start to trip, you know exactly which limbs and bits to move to hold your fall. So, yeah, it was a great exercise for me. I think that the greatest learning was that I took up the slackline at the mature age of 48, where a lot of people are fearful at that age that we shouldn't be tackling physical stuff.
Yeah.
And so that, to me, was a step of courage, which, you know, has given me great courage to try other things as I get more mature. So what?
I was well over 60 when I learned to ski.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I plan to do those things too. Thanks for the inspiration.
Although I'm more of a faller than a skier, but it was fun. So you mentioned Get Smarter. What are you actually doing with them? I mean, explain who they are and how you're involved.
Get Smarter is an incredible institution. They were a startup not so long ago, maybe 6 or 8 years ago. And their idea was to make university courses accessible for those who did not have the time or money to invest in a long-term university course. So they approached various leading universities with the idea of creating short courses, all online. So each of the courses that they offer is backed by some university. Some of them are very prestigious universities, Yale and whatnot. Our course was first created by a guy called Dale Williams, who is very well known in the coaching arena in South Africa. And Dale and I have been friends for a long time, very respectful of each other as colleagues. And when the course was due for a rework, Dale put my name forward. And when they first contacted me to interview me, I happened to be in Chicago at the time, and they said, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm in Chicago." And they said, "When are you coming back to South Africa?" And I said, "I'm not. I'm going back to Chile, where I live." And they said, "Oh, sorry, we can't work with you. We only work with local people. Goodbye." And consequently, they employed a client of mine. So I was kind of thrilled. They employed a client to do the piece of work. And I'm not sure the details, but they came back to me maybe 6 months later and said, "All right, we've decided we really do want you to do this, and we don't care where you are." And I said, "Well, who does care where I am? Because it's an online program. And we want to demonstrate to our students that you can do this work from anywhere. That's what we're promoting." And so to have a head tutor who's based out of the country, but still understands the South African lingo and the South African context, actually adds to the program. So I'm the head tutor on the course. We rewrote it. The majority of our students are in South Africa. We're backed by the University of Cape Town. But this presentation, we have our first student from Chile, and we have students in Malta and Europe, and we had a student from USA in the last presentation. So we're starting to expand more broadly, which is very exciting. Fantastic course, just fantastic.
Okay. And I met, what's his name, Sam Paddock or something like that, one of the founders of Get Smarter. Very interesting.
Good for you. I haven't.
A couple of brothers, they're doing great things, and they're doing well for themselves as well, which they totally deserve.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, what amazes you about people?
Wow, what a big and important question. It's interesting because if you'd asked me what frustrates me about people, the answer would have been closer to the top of my mind.
Are we going to get there?
Human beings are designed that way.
Hold that thought. We're going to get there.
I'm quite influenced by my current activities, listening to these coaching recording calls. I'm very impressed when people recognize that they are receptive to learning more. Particularly people in their sort of middle years. When they come into our study program, many people, when they introduce themselves, will share that they know it all. They've been doing this thing and they know it all. And by about the third module, they have become so much more modest. And you're hearing a lot of people saying, wow, 30 years, I thought I knew it all, 30 years in corporate. Now I realize I know nothing. I'm a beginner. I'm a baby. I'm receptive to learning. I think that's amazing.
Mm-hmm. I find the same thing teaching negotiation, by the way. That when you go around the class, asking everybody where they're from and what they have to get out of it. And invariably you get the smart aleck who says, I've done negotiation courses way back. We did it at varsity. And, but I just thought, I'll come along and see, maybe I can pick up an extra trick or two. And as the first morning wears on, they get quieter and quieter, They just realize that there's a whole lot of stuff in the realm of they don't know what they don't know.
Right. The unconscious incompetence model, right?
Anyway, so what disappoints you about people?
Well, in the same vein, I guess it disappoints me those who are not open to learning, those who are shut down. Mm-hmm. This is just an aside cultural thing. South Africans, in my experience, are very progressive, if that's the right word, into their older years, as we've discussed. You learn skiing after 60, blah, blah. And I'm impressed. 50 and 60 and 70-year-old South Africans are jogging and skateboarding and surfing and climbing the mountain, and it's very cool. In this culture, there is respect for age. And when people reach only 50, which I think is super young, they become a don and they're allowed to sit down and take their place at the elders' table. And that very often has the side effect that people shut down in their ability to learn. And that I find sad.
Okay. We are in the middle of this pandemic. How are you personally dealing with it?
Oh, Derek, what an interesting question. I am in a unique position that creates confusion and opportunity. The unique position is that I'm sitting in one country, which is not mine, working with loads of people who are sitting in various other countries, which are not mine. Every government is choosing its own way forward. As an expatriate, I have no other choice but to comply with what Chile is doing and how it's approaching the situation. Their approach is very different to South Africa. We were in lockdown for 2 weeks. Some communas, some barrios, some neighborhoods were in lockdown, and now we're out of lockdown. A law has been passed that we will all wear face masks. That's how this country is mitigating it. Me personally, because I'm in the situation where I've got like one hand in South Africa, one foot in Brazil, one arm in Ireland. I've got all these things going. I'm almost in what I would call an empathy lockdown. So where the majority of my people are in lockdown, I'm staying there. So I'm in lockdown with you guys in South Africa, even though that's not necessarily my law outside. I'm a bit of a fatalist. If I should get a disease and die, well, that will be how life is. However, if I can avoid being sick in any way, that would be my first priority, because I'm committed to my work and I have a commitment that I have made to people to be here for them. And so I'm going to try and avoid any form of sickness so that I can continue to serve.
What fears, if any, do you have about the situation we're in? Not necessarily for yourself, but for the world, for clients?
The obvious fear, as everybody is fearing the same thing, the obvious fear is that our health systems are not going to be able to manage such a strong demand for their services. So we need to consider that. Again, I'm in a foreign country. I only know one hospital in the city because I've been to that one before. I don't know the others or what the conditions are like. But that is what happens when you're an expat. The other interesting fear, I guess, is what's going to happen at the end of the lockdown. How is that going to be managed? When I think about South Africa and your total sort of lockdown, I can't imagine that at the end of it, it's just going to be, okay, open your doors, guys, everybody out there.
No.
So how that's going to be managed and how everybody's mental and emotional and spiritual health is going to be managed, that, doesn't worry me. It's more like a point of curiosity. that's going to be an interesting time for us.
Yeah, I suppose it's going to be a long time till we get to hugging each other again, which is a pity.
Oh. Do you know that in Chile, the form of greeting is a one cheek kiss?
Yeah.
You sort of give your cheek.
Yeah.
And everybody kisses like this, even if you're strangers.
Yeah.
And all women are kissed.
Mm-hmm.
Women kiss women and men kiss women. Generally, when two guys are greeting, they slap each other and shake hands and stuff. But the women get kissed by everybody. And you even get kissed by your bank manager and your dentist and everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a big deal for Chileans to have no kissing allowed and to have this social distancing is a huge break in their cultural habits.
I'm very fond of South Americans in general. In particular, well, I've only been to a couple of countries, but that was what impressed me about Brazil. The people appear so warm, and it's just total strangers.
Yeah.
You ask somebody for directions, and then, you've known them for 5 minutes, they answer it, and they help you, and then they hug you.
It's amazing. It's been amazing. Here, it always surprised me in the beginning when I'd walk along the street with a friend, and the friend would bump into friends, and the friend would introduce me, and all those friends would kiss me. They don't know me from Adam. We're all smooching.
So getting back to coronavirus, what practices help you to remain calm and unafraid?
Work is a beautiful, it's action, taking action, doing, being present. As you and I were talking about the be here, be now. I'm doing a little bit of a diet from the news. I figure there's no point in waking up every day and watching the numbers. So we are where we are. I allow the big headlines to come through, but I'm no longer, in the beginning, like many people, I was like all over Google asking it questions. I've stopped doing that. I'm not promoting it because it's not for everybody, but I have found this platform, kind of like Netflix. It's called Gaia, and it offers up a lot of yoga classes and a lot of spiritual content, movies, and I'm enjoying filling my head with that stuff instead of like a Netflix approach. A lot of yoga here in my apartment. We are allowed to go out for walks, and so I try and make an hour walk. I'm very fortunate. I live in a neighborhood where not too many people live, and so I don't bump into anybody.
Okay.
Just trying to be a leader. I think a leader needs to demonstrate calm, needs to serve the people we lead. So trying to do that.
Okay.
How about you?
Much the same. I've got a 25-meter track around the pot plants in the garden, and I had to try to do 200 laps of that, but that's
wow.
That's 5Ks, but every day. And then a few Pilates stretches, but that's about, but often, unfortunately, you get stuck in front of the computer and it's comfortable, then you don't make the effort to get up. But you could be more disciplined in actually doing those things, which I do often, but not all the time.
If you were my client, I'd say put them in your schedule. Put your walking time in your schedule. Put your yoga, Pilates time in your schedule.
Yeah, that's what I should do. I was going to ask you, what advice can you give in general to people who are anxious and fearful?
Maybe two pieces of advice. One is to go back in your memory and to recall the times in your life where you have faced uncertainty, because all of us who have lived have been through uncertain times. And then recognize what strengths you capitalized on in those uncertain times. And ask yourself, how can you dial up on those strengths now? So retrospection is a very good tool.
Okay.
And then the other piece of advice is, perhaps as I was sharing, is work to be here now, work to be present.
Yeah.
We only have the moment we have in a day, the moments, and be in them.
Okay. That's fascinating. So what's next for Michelle? Do you think you'll be in Santiago for, I don't think so, but for your whole life?
No. Santiago has been very good to me. Chile has been very, very good to me. So I remain in gratitude. I would like to be in an English-speaking country. I feel that to go to the next level in my work and my career, it would be helpful to be surrounded by English speakers. I've got a couple of short-term ambitions. I want to learn how to surf. So I need to go somewhere where there's nice warm water to surf. From my career perspective, I set up some goals pre-COVID-19. And my goals were all about pushing more of my work into the cloud. That's always been my goal, is to be working virtually and to take one-on-one coaching into a new space. The space I'm moving into now is group coaching online. The ultimate goal for me would be facilitating important conversations between important people globally online. Now with the pandemic, we'll have to see how that pans out, because everybody's popped online, and we'll have to see how that works from a competitive point of view and such. But pushing more into the cloud, loving my work in the cloud, and waiting for life to settle back down a little so that travel restrictions can lift, so that I can go and find a cool beginner's surfer's beach.
Well, thank you, Michelle. It's been wonderful talking to you, and thank you for your insights. Thank you for being a good guest. For those of you who would like to get in touch with Michelle or with me, leave a comment on our website, not-just-business.com. Alternatively, just drop me an email at derek@derekpeed.org. Thank you for listening, and have a wonderful day.